everyone. A very warm welcome to another exciting episode of Psychology Talks. And today we're going to discuss a topic which affects a million of people, yet it is very much misunderstood. And the topic is like attention deficit disorder, which is often called ADHD. But when many people actually hear this term, they think that it is some kind of disorder or disability. But it is something really more than that. It is like to me, I just some when I've met with some ADHD people, I feel that it is kind of their superpower. It is just that the mind, the brain actually works differently. So, anyways, we're going to discuss this in detail today. And I'm so honored to be joined by Mr. Michael. He is an award winning keynote speaker, executive function specialist, professional development trainer, and creator of the internal skill executive function strengthening model. With more than 2 decades of experience, he has worked with children, adults, families, educator organizations to strengthen executive function, skill, and improve the quality of life of individuals living with ADHD. He's also the co-host of ADHD Parenting Podcast and the author of Executive Function Playbook and Executive Function Playbook in Action. So we are so honored to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here. I've been looking forward to this all day and chatting with you on, the great work you're doing to spread this information for parents and everything you're doing with Psychology Talk. So it's a privilege to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your kind word. So let's begin our discussion. Just tell us about yourself that how did you start your journey and why this ADHD matters to you?
Sure. So I grew up with ADHD. Obviously, ADHD is something that's hereditary. You're born with it. So I've had ADHD my entire life and really struggled in so many different ways, especially socially and in various other ways. And then career wise, work wise, I always knew I wanted to work with youth in some capacity. My mom was a very decorated teacher for many decades. So I initially went in to become a teacher and then eventually found myself after graduating with my first bachelor's degree working at a residential treatment facility in New York, where I was able to be a one-to-one to many students that lived there full-time on campus. They didn't live with their parents, they lived at home due to their needs. And I was able to observe a lot of speech and language pathology sessions. And I was like, wow, this person gets to work with students one-on-one to directly improve their quality of life and give them skills that are actually going to be helpful instead of learning about history facts and the periodic table and things they learn in school that don't actually help them. I was able to observe them learning skills that improve their confidence, quality of life, communication skills. So I immediately went back and got my second bachelor's degree in speech pathology, then got my master's degree. And during my first year as an SLP, a speech language pathologist, I was fortunate enough to work with great doctors and neuropsychs down in DC. And I learned very quickly there's very little out there for kids with ADHD. They're spending
Yeah.
thousands of hours and thousands of dollars on all this therapy and counseling and play therapy and occupational therapy, and it's not moving the needle. It's not improving outcomes. They're not going to college. They're not becoming more employable. They're not making more friends or keeping more friends or improving their grades. There's still tantrums at homes on a daily basis. They're still screen addicted. So I took a deep dive into the great work of Dr. Russell Barkley, Dr. George McCloskey, Sarah Ward, Ryan Wexelblatt, and I learned everything I could about ADHD, and I developed the internal skills model. We did a year-long research study on it and shows that, it works and it brings about great progress, and everything's really expanded from there.
Yes, I mean it's very interesting that you started with your having this with yourself. Like you said that you had ADHD, and then you actually went into this field of speech pathology. And so at that time, did you know that you had ADHD, or you just found yourself something different? How did you actually find out about it?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed much earlier than that, so I definitely knew about it. And honestly, I never really, it wasn't something that was made a very big deal when I was a kid. When I was a kid,
Mm,
it wasn't really talked about for kids to have diagnoses or have this. It was just, oh, you lose attention. It's not a big deal. So I was never
Mhm.
medicated as a child, never had any services, anything. It was just, go about and sink or swim, and that was it. So it wasn't really something I really ever thought about, or there were times when someone would have asked me like, "Hey, do you have it?" And I'd be like, "No." Well, I never really educated myself about it, or thought about it, or got any
Mhm.
services about it. My parents just allowed me to be who I am, and that was it. And it wasn't something that I really started to focus on and make sense of until I was in my 30s. Definitely struggled in so many different ways, and getting confirming the diagnosis as an adult has helped make sense of a lot of things. But at the end of the day, it's not an excuse for behavior. It's not an excuse for mistakes. It's not something that you use as a crutch. At the end of the day, you got to take responsibility for your actions, and um, make sure that it's something that you are able to get a control of.
Yes, that definitely. One thing that you said, that it is not something, it's not an excuse to, or it's not something that is excuse to your mistakes, right? Or it's not an excuse to your like behavior, which are not actually according to the societal expectations, or maybe it's not a way that it's some people actually say, okay, I have ADHD, so that's why it is in this way. It's it is what I said in the beginning, that it is somehow their brain works differently, and everything needs to be adjusted around it, rather than just saying that okay, it cannot be done because I have this problem. It can be done if you just reach out or you look at things in a different way. So I want to also just ask that you mentioned that you have actually developed this program, right? Internal skill executive function and strengthening model. What is it, and how does it help ADHD people?
Yeah, so that's a great question. For decades, ADHD was looked at as this external behavioral based disorder. So it was all about hyperactive kids who can't sit still,
Yeah.
and inattentive kids who just daydream. And executive functioning was all about time management and organization, messy
Mhm.
backpacks, messy folders, messy bedrooms. Everything was based on external, what we can see with our eyes. But what we now know is that it's a lack of internal skills that create those external symptoms. So I break down the grown out internal skills model into a 4-pillar system. The first
Mhm.
executive functioning skill is self awareness. So the ability to be aware of who you are, and the actions that you take, and the things that you do affect others, and the things that you do affect yourself. So it's recognizing that you have an impact on your environment and you have an impact on yourself. It's the beginning of if then cause and effect conditional thinking. So overall self-awareness of recognizing that your actions and behaviors have an impact. And then number two is self-regulation, the ability to regulate your emotions, your language, your body, your behavior in various environments towards various stimuli. So self-regulation is really what it's all about. Dr. Russell Barkley's talked about how ADHD is not attention deficit disorder, it's actually self-regulation deficit disorder. It's not hyperactivity, it's the inability to regulate your body. It's not inattentiveness, it's the inability to regulate your mind. So it's all about self regulation. And all the parents listening to this, if you have a child with ADHD, self regulation is what you deal with. There's a very good chance that your child is screen addicted and video game addicted, because ADHD and screen addiction goes hand in hand, and that's just going to dysregulate them even more and make them more dysregulated towards all non-screen based tasks. So anger, aggression, fighting, arguing, negotiating is a very big part of ADHD and the negative attention stimulation of the brain. So at baseline, the ADHD brain is seeking dopamine through either screens or conflict, and furthering about that dysregulation. Then we have self motivation towards non preferred tasks. So, can your child motivate themselves to do things that are non preferred and non screen based, challenging, boring tasks, the things that are actually important and the things that actually help you as a person? And then self evaluation. Can you learn from past experiences and apply it to the present moment so you don't repeat mistakes over and over again?
That sounds incredible, because I personally think that it's this model needs it is like it is applicable, or it can do wonders for everyone. It's not, I think, only for ADHD people, because a lot of people who actually find themselves that they get stuck, and they lose motivation, and then they don't have the time to, they can't regulate their mind. But I'm sure that it is mainly helping with the ADHD people. So I think this model is really, really amazing. And what I really like about that, you started with the self-awareness. I think that is the beginning of everything, because they need to, or everyone, each one of us need to find out that what is going on in our mind. And it comes with the self-awareness. If they don't know what's happening to the mind, it's just that they are just going in a direction which they don't know. So I think that's a wonderful model, and I think whoever is listening must contact you if they need your help in that.
Thank you.
There's also a very good comment by Mr. Pranan Kamandelian. I'm sorry that if I pronounce the name wrongly. It's really very important discussion and the clarification about ADHD, neurodevelopmental disorder, marked by ongoing pattern of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity that interfere with daily functioning development. It typically begins in the childhood and frequently persists in adulthood, requiring combination and behavior therapists, medication, and lifestyle strategy to manage. Yes, thank you so much for this comment, and you're absolutely right. It goes like that. Moving on to the discussion, just explain in a very simple term that what is actually ADHD, because a lot of people confuse that. Sometimes those who think, like I've seen, or I have actually gone, like a lot of parents came to me and they say that, okay, their parents cannot sit quietly, so they have ADHD. Some say that, they cannot focus, they cannot do anything. So, like, I think, so in some cases, when kids don't even have ADHD, people say that they have ADHD, and when kids have ADHD, they don't accept that they have ADHD. So just clarify that what exactly is ADHD in a very simple terms.
Of course. Yeah. So this is a great question because ADHD is incredibly misunderstood because the name ADHD is actually a horrible name for what ADHD actually is. And a lot of the pioneers want the name of ADHD changed to EFDD, Executive Functioning Developmental Disorder, because ADHD is not an attention disorder, it is an executive functioning disorder, a disorder of the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, and the executive functioning system. And like I said earlier, executive functioning is not just time management, organization, and study skills. It is executive functions are the greatest predictor of success for human beings. Executive functions are a greater predictor of success than your grades and your IQ. People have to understand that. You can have a very strong IQ with no executive functions, and you can't do anything with that IQ. And a lot of kids with ADHD have gifted IQs and do very, very well at school and are twice exceptional, but they have little to no executive functions, little to no social executive functions, little to no ability to do things outside of their comfort zone, little to no ability to be bored, and sometimes they're very screen addicted. And if they have no executive functions, that IQ in many ways is meaningless because you need executive function skills to move out of your parents' house, get a job, keep a job, make friends, and keep friends. So when we think about executive functions are life independent skills. We have to stop thinking about them as time management organization for school. It is the ability to regulate and motivate yourself in the face of challenge, boredom, new activities, and things that don't require instant gratification, which is really 99% of life.
So they it's not, I would just say that it's not only that they cannot concentrate over certain tasks for longer time, or it's not their inability to maintain the attention, but it's basically inability to remain focused in these kind of activities in executive functions, right?
Yeah, so it is executive functioning is self-regulation. So we all have to stop using the word attention, focus, all of those different things. And that's not what it is. It's they can't regulate themselves towards things that don't give them instant gratification. What gives them instant gratification? Screens, their
Yeah.
phone, the internet, and conflict, arguing, yelling with unconditional relationships of parents, and most notably moms. Moms get the worst of ADHD behaviors. So it's not about attention and focus and concentration. It's about regulation. Can they regulate their emotions to do things that they don't see the benefit in, that does
Yeah.
not give them instant dopamine. Anything that requires delayed gratification, which is all the important things of life, hygienic tasks, studying, reading,
Mm,
making new friends, joining clubs, sports,
mm,
activities, all the things that are outside of their comfort zone. ADHD kids, teens, and adults have very small and narrow comfort zones. It's one, two, or three things that they enjoy doing. Most kids and teens with ADHD, it's YouTube, Snapchat, Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft. They just want to do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But obviously, that's not helping them in any way, shape, or form. And those are not real social experiences. So it's not about concentration and focus. It's really about the ability to self regulate towards things that don't offer instant gratification.
yeah. I think when you say this, like the comfort zone is like internet, YouTube. So I think that's the main dilemma of like most of the like parents, that they always complain that their kids are always on the on computers. They're watching either like YouTube or they are playing on the internet. So just tell us that what are the symptoms, like if parents have to find out that are their kids are really having ADHD or not. So what are the instant symptoms that they can say, okay, this is the reason why we can just need the treatment for our kids?
Yeah, well, the first is constant dysregulation, constant emotional dysregulation. Is there a baseline arguing, negotiating, yelling, screaming? The hallmark symptom of ADHD is being dysregulated in the moment. You have to watch for that. ADHD presents itself in different ways. There's home executive functions, where it's the inability to initiate, persist, and complete non-preferred, non-screen based tasks in the home, and constant dysregulation towards parents and siblings. There's academic executive functions, where you're not completing your work, you're not starting your work, you're calling out in class, you're getting in trouble. And then there's social executive functions, where you're not making friends and keeping friends. So one of the real hallmark red flags that parents need to look out for is, does every single day start to look the same for my child? Do they wake up, go to school, come home, stay home, or do they have some variety? Are they doing a club, a sport, an activity, going outside and playing, going to other friends' house? If they're doing the same thing on a day-to-day basis, they're not going to develop executive functions, because executive functions are only strengthened through varied experiences, doing as many different things as possible.
Yes, I love that response, that this, because I've seen kids that they're doing same thing over and over again, and their parents are really worried that why my kids are not actually taking part of different social activities. They're not interested in variety of experience, as you said. So my next question is that how to deal with this, like how to motivate the kids with ADHD to seek regulation, to seek different variety of experiences, and to overcome with all these symptoms that you mentioned.
Well, the number one thing parents have to realize is there's absolutely no reason for kids to do these things if
Yeah.
screens and games and the internet is available to them. So many
Yeah.
parents have this deep dream of, why can't my child have a balance? Why can't they have the
Yeah.
skills? Why can't they keep the screens in their lives and still do all these other important tasks?
Mm,
That's just not going to happen. The screen is the center of their life. It's an addicting drug, and it is coming for every second of their attention. It wants all of their attention. So parents need to do something about those screens. Stop, hoping that one day the kid's going to want to go outside and want to do things with the screens in their life. They're going to choose that screen a million times out of a million times. If the option is go outside and play or be on a screen, they're picking a screen. If it's join a club, sport, activity, or go home and be on a screen, they're going to pick the screen. If it's go out and get ice cream or stay on your screen, they're going to pick the screen. It's as simple as that. So as long as screens are available to them, they're going to take it. So you as the parent are going to have to step in, because you're the one who bought that screen. You're the one who pays for the Wi-Fi. You're the one who pays for the electricity. You're going to have to sit down with your spouse and come up with some sort of plan to get those screens out of the house. You may be one of the millions and millions and millions of parents who bought their kid a smartphone before their brain was ready for it. There's a saying on social media that all behavior is communication, but we only want to believe that when it's warm and fuzzy, like, oh, that's a connection seeking behavior. He just needs more of me, and he needs more hugs and kisses. How about the behavior you see every day around screens? That's a behavior that's giving you communication as well, and it's communicating to you, hey mom, hey dad, you gave me too many screens too soon. My brain can't handle this level of stimulation. When this is in my life, I have no desire to do anything else. They're telling you that every single day with their behaviors. So you as the parent are going to have to step in and get those screens out of your kid's life immediately. So detox their brain from the screens, make them no longer an option for your child. And then after that, we are going to make it an expectation and not a choice to join some sort of club, sport, activity, or really, really increase their outdoor time. That's where they're going to require an authoritative parent to enforce these high expectations for them to be involved in their community and real social experiences.
Yeah, I love that response that, because most of the time we've seen this like all the time on social media also that, this is how bad screens are and what is the great damage they're doing to the kids. But like, when I give this advice to a lot of parents, sometimes they come up and say that they have to give screens to their kids. Like their schools are demanding to have them on the computers, on the screens, and then they need to do some homeworks, they need to do some projects, which requires this. So what do you think? How do you answer this, and how do you respond to these like problems that the parents face?
Having to do homework on a screen, you're saying?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
because they're required to use a screen, like from the
Yep.
schoolwork and from other projects, or maybe even like staying connected with the friends.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. So, well, the whole staying connected to friends is propaganda from big tech. Every single parent listening to this knows that ever
yeah,
since your kid got a phone and tech, they became less social and more antisocial and spent more time at
that's
home and more time in their room. So they're marketed as social devices, but they're just not. They're going to make your kid more depressed and more dormant than previously. I'm sure many parents listening to this have seen the huge backlash towards ed tech and laptops at school and tablets at school and technology at school. It's the worst thing to ever happen to education in the history of education. It's really harming this entire generation of youth. This generation of youth is the first generation of human beings in history to do worse than the generation before, to be less intelligent, less capable, less independent, and score less and be less literate and all of those different things. And it's because of technology. We can blame everything we want to blame, whether it's medicine and food and all these different things. It's the screens, period. That's a huge problem. So parents can opt out of the ed tech completely and go back to pen and paper at school, or they need to set very hard, fast rules around that technology. That school laptop never goes into the bedroom, never leaves a public place, never goes into their room behind closed doors. It stays at the kitchen table where it can be supervised, and you give them 1 hour access to it after school to complete their schoolwork. At the end of that hour, you take that laptop away, whether they say they're done or not, and they don't get it again until they leave for school in the morning. And over time, you're going to find them get very, very productive during that hour. Or you can even reach out to another parent in your child's class and have them do homework together for an hour to hold each other accountable and do some body doubling, whatever it may be. But you sitting down with your child and supervising them doing their homework, every parent listening to this knows that backfires every time. It turns into a 3-hour fight over 5 minutes of homework. So standing over your child's shoulder is not going to work. Being more authoritative and recognizing that laptop's actually yours. You're the one paying taxes. You're the one paying tuition. That laptop is yours, not your child's. So you take that laptop away from your child whenever you need to. If you let them take it into their room or let them take it out of a public space, they're going to be on YouTube in 5 seconds.
Yes, I think that's what I'm actually understanding from your conversation is that the screens are the major problems for this ADHD brain, and they are these screens are the one that are causing all the problems. And when we take out the screen from their lives, it becomes really better. But what I also like hear from a lot of people that it's genetic and it requires a lot of medication. What do you think? What does medication play? What is the role of medication in ADHD?
Yeah, so
If
so
it is
ADHD is genetic. It's hereditary. You are born with it. Screens don't cause ADHD. They cause ADHD symptoms that can go away through a detox and removal of the screens. But if you have ADHD, your brain is hardwired for screen addiction. So there's no greater victim of big tech's predatory marketing than our ADHD kids and teens because they can't regulate themselves on these screens and they're struggling socially and parents buy them a screen to give them a leg up socially, and it backfires every time. It makes them less social, and they spend more time at home. So that's the big thing there. You know, medication is highly evidence based. Medication is safe, and medication is excellent. But like we're talking about screens here, you can medicate your child all you want. If they're on screens all day, it's not going to do anything. So step one is to remove the screens and detox from the screens. And step two is to have an in-depth conversation with the doctor, a licensed physician who knows you in person, who knows your child personally, that can help you decide which medication is best and which dosage is best. But ADHD medication is some of the most studied medication in all of psychiatry, all of child development. It's safe, it's effective. If taken long enough, it can speed up the delay in the development of the brain. You know, listen to Dr. Russell Barkley talk about medication. He's the best of all time. You know, there's a lot of stigma around it. The best advice I can give parents is never get medication advice on Facebook. Only do it face to face with parents, not with parents, with physicians.
Yeah, yeah. So like it can like the so I just want to understand that is it a must or we can do without the medication also?
Nothing is a must. Nothing in childhood or parenting is a must. Nothing is
Yeah,
100%. No,
yeah.
every single child is a unique individual. No two ADHD kids are the same. So we tend like sometimes I'll go on Facebook and I'll see someone write, "What's the best job for someone with ADHD? What's the best sport for someone with ADHD? What's the best camp for someone with ADHD?" That's implying they're all the same, and all ADHD people are the same, and that's nonsense. Every single person is different. They're all unique individuals. I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of ADHD students who are not medicated, who are doing just fine now and doing fantastic. And I've worked with many who are medicated who are doing fantastic. So it's all about the unique individual. Nothing is ever a must, but it's a conversation you do need to have with a licensed physician.
Yes, yes. I think when it comes to medication, parents must realize that they need to consult a proper physician to actually start medication for the kids. And there's also a very good comment here that in particular, children should be encouraged to play active games. Furthermore, it is crucial for parents to spend time with the children and set aside time to talk to them. What is technology and why it is important, and when it is important to advise to kids?
What is technology?
And what is
Technology is a smartphone, getting them a smartphone, getting them a tablet, the internet. It's basically the internet. Constant access to the internet and the endless loops of content is incredibly addictive. And most adults now are addicted. Most adults listening to this grab their phone as soon as they wake up. It's the last thing they look at before they go to sleep, and they're grabbing it at every single red light. Let's be honest. Adults with a fully developed brain can't handle their own phone, and the
yeah.
brain grows until you're 30 years old. So we expect a 17-year-old to manage his cell phone time. It's not going to happen. So technology is an iPhone, an iPad, anything with access to the internet is an addicting device. Phones were not addictive until they got internet access. Video games were not addicting until they got connected to the internet. Smart TVs with YouTube on a smart TV, they're just going to end up watching videos of other people playing video games, and it's going to be just like them playing a video game instead of sitting back and watching cable TV. So technology is anything with internet access can be incredibly addicting.
Yeah, because I think as it actually triggers the dopamine all the time when they are
Yeah.
on the internet, and then they seek the reward and they seek this, like the brain is constantly seeking this reward system, that okay, whenever they are on internet. So it's very important that keep them away from all these gadgets and all these internet related gadgets, I would just say.
Correct.
So
Yes.
yeah.
If you already have them in your house, come up with a plan immediately to remove them, a safety plan. Some kids, withdrawals will be easier than expected, and some will be harder than expected. So, some parents need to bring in some backup and get some help and really focus on safety while their kid withdraws. And then some parents are thinking about bringing it into their home in the first place. And my advice to them is not to do that. We live in a world now where the greatest advantage you can give your child is to not get them a phone.
No, that's a very good advice. Well, a lot of people, actually, a lot of parents think the other way around. That they think that it is the greatest advantage they're giving when they are just presenting them or gifting their child a phone, smartphone, or the iPad or something. But I think this is now it's time to actually put them like take them back a little step and just take these gadgets away from them. So although it's not easy, because when the kids, of course they will push back, they may refuse to take part in the activities, but when they find no options, eventually they have to adapt to themselves, and that's how our brains are wired to do that. We adapt to all the situations, but again we need to create an environment where they actually grow and adapt in the right direction. Yeah. So just tell us that what are the myths associated with ADHD that you think that they are the reason, which is that is why a lot of people are not taking help, especially when they are suffering from ADHD.
Yeah, so really, one of the myths is that it needs lots of accommodating, so lots of accommodations and lots of support and assistance. When in reality, it really needs increased consequences, higher expectations, raising the bar. There's nothing an ADHD kid or teen needs more than a parent who believes in them and keeps consistent high expectations. You don't want to step in and save your child if they forgot their lunch or forgot an assignment or forgot their soccer cleats at practice. You don't want to rush in and save them from having to experience a negative emotion because they have ADHD and you feel bad for them. You want them to experience having that emotion so that they can repair it later, so they can make sure that they don't repeat that again. Those negative experiences are incredibly meaningful to these kids and teach them a lesson to not repeat it again. We gain the most in life. The best advice in life is the hardest to hear. This is why social media is filled with pseudoscience, because it's telling parents what they want to hear for more likes and shares and follows and to get all those things. If we tell parents the truth, you're going to get a lot less likes and shares and follows and those kinds of
Yeah.
things. That this is why gentle parenting has taken off and low demand parenting has taken off, because it's just telling parents what they want to hear, that they don't have to be the bad guys. They don't have to step in. They don't have to be their authority. Just give them the screen time. It's fine. So, in reality, we really need we need parents to step into their parental authority, make things expectations and not a choice, and really make sure their child's having these varied experiences.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice, actually. And these are the myths you just said that it's very important that it's not about adjusting parents according to the kids' needs or kids' demands. It must be the other way around. The parents needs to be in the commanding position, in an authority position where they need to lead their kids. So I think that's an eye opening also. Lots of actually parents just let their kids do whatever they want to do and then step back, and then it has the consequences. Now we've discussed a lot of about the parenting thing. Let's talk about schools and organizations, like especially schools and universities, for example. If the kids go to the universities or schools, how they need to treat kids with ADHD and how they can help who are having ADHD.
Yeah, so for younger ADHD kids, it's very important that they get movement breaks and brain breaks. Many kids with ADHD struggle at school because they get a lot of dopamine from getting reactions, from calling out and making their peers laugh, and and having an audience. Many of them need to leave the room a little bit, self-soothe, and then come back, or go for a little bit of a walk, get a little bit of exercise, and come back. Recess time, gym time, phys ed time is so important for these kids. There's nothing better for ADHD than exercise. So that's always incredibly important. Outside of that, we need to make sure that the consequences are set in place. Any work not completed in the class day, maybe they have to stay after and get it done. Maybe they end up missing out on something else to get their work done. If they're late to school, there should be a consequence at school for being late to assist with their morning routine. We need to make sure they're utilizing extracurriculars like clubs and sports and activities. It's sometimes it's good for these kids to be given a chance to fix their mistakes on tests and quizzes. We need to really watch their ability to gain reading comprehension and written expression skills, because those are the skills that ADHD kids and teens struggle with the most, is reading and writing. So we have to make sure they gain those skills, because those are some of the most important skills you gain through executive functions and at school. And we're seeing right now with the literacy crisis we're seeing in America and in the world, are people not, young adults graduating and not being able to read. So it's very, very important to make sure the student is being held accountable to those conditional relationships at school, and not just surfing the web on their Chromebook or their tablet. They're getting the work done and they're being held to a high standard.
Yes, I think these are very practical strategies. If a school adopts, they can help these kids who are having ADHD or any other disorder, or I would say like the brain related or neurodiversity something. So, anyways, I just also want to ask that you mentioned that when you were young, you were you had this you find out that you had ADHD, but you didn't even actually, it didn't even matter to you, right? You didn't take any kind of action. But what made you do now that, what do you think that like people are struggling with ADHD or something, or what made you realize that you need to take some action to actually treat this? So what was the, I would just say, the moment that you think that, okay, this is something that you need to take it seriously?
Yeah. So that's been in so many different ways. Obviously having a child of my own was a huge moment and a huge turning point in my life, where you're responsible for someone that you love and they're dependent on you. That's always been huge. And growing up and having to live independently. It's I in my 30s achieved what most people achieve in their 20s, because I was more delayed and not able to, it just simply wasn't mature enough, just further beyond my peers. So it wasn't really until I got through enough schooling and I had the opportunity to do what I was just naturally good at. I was put on this earth to work with kids and work with youth, and I was always naturally drawn to. I was always fascinated by child development and how you go from a tiny little baby to a full-fledged adult and you gain all these skills. Like, it's the most fascinating thing in the world, of going from someone who's fully dependent to independent.
Mhm.
It's a really amazing thing. So the turning point for me was just persevering through all those challenges. I went through graduate school where I had pretty much no income and lived in a tiny little apartment in the Bronx, New York, and just knew I had to get through school and persevere. And sometimes it was just having my back against the wall and having increased consequences, and knowing that I had to get it done. So the turning point for me was sort of, it was basically almost hitting rock bottom, of just kind of just being on
Mhm.
my own and having to work and work and work, and know that I needed to get to a point where I can do what I knew I was meant to do.
Yeah, I think, and that's really important, that we need to help kids, that we help them realize that that they can do much better before hitting the rock bottom.
Oh, you got
So
it.
I think that,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So I know that we can go on and on this topic, and of course you're an authority and you are sharing so much wisdom and so much great insights on this topic. But unfortunately, the time is running out. So before I actually close this show, I would just want you to share one piece of advice for our audience, that how they can actually cope up with ADHD.
Sure. Yeah. So, with ADHD in general, the number one thing, don't focus so much on focus and attention and concentration. Focus more on overall self-awareness. Start to think about the effects of your actions, before you do them. So, ADHD is missing that stop and think feature. That's why this is where impulsiveness comes from. So it's missing the ability to stop, visualize to yourself, talk to yourself, and then do something. So the ADHD people find themselves going with plan A, plan A, plan A. We need them to be able to stop, think, process, and go with the more healthy and educated plan B, plan C, plan D. So if you are a parent to an ADHD child or teen, start to model how you talk to yourself. Adults, we talk to ourselves all day long. We have an internal private voice all day long, coaching ourselves and monitoring our behavior. Start to externalize it. Start to sort of sportscast your day in front of your child so they can hear how you talk to yourselves and how you process information and how you make decisions.
Mm.
Ask them what to expect when you're in the car going somewhere, what they think is going to happen at school today, what they think is going to happen at the grocery store, what they think is going to happen at a birthday party. So let's really increase these expectations. Really, really focus on the fundamentals. Outdoor, unstructured, unsupervised play. Send your kids outside to play unsupervised with no fear, because let's be honest, all the crazy people are online now. They're not outside. So send your kids outside. Make sure they are bored. Being bored is like going to the gym for your brain, and make sure that there is struggle and you're not saving them from experiencing negative emotions.
Yeah, I absolutely love that advice, because I think what I really love this that you said, that let them be bored. I think that is one thing is really really important for, actually, for everyone, because when we are bored, our mind gets really really creative, and that's one thing that we need to let our kids experience this, experience the boredom, which is, I think, which is the root cause of creativity. So I absolutely love that advice. And if people who are hearing, either joining us live or watching us recorded, how they can reach out to you?
Yeah,
What
so
is
my
the
web
best way?
my website is grownowadhd.com. You can
Yeah.
go right there. You can take a deep dive through all our frequently asked questions and learn more about our fully personalized parent training, and also the work we do directly with students. We do virtual sessions with families all around the world, of all different ages, and you can do parent training with no child involvement, or you can also have your child involved as well. Everything's always tailored towards a unique individual. Nothing is a one size fits all approach. So that's grownowadhd.com. You can follow me on Instagram at grownowadhd. Check out the ADHD Parenting Podcast. And you can also buy my books that we mentioned at the beginning, the Executive Functioning Playbook and the Executive Functioning Playbook in Action Workbook, both available on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
Yeah, amazing. That's really amazing. And it was such a wonderful discussion, and you shared such a like great insights and wisdom, and I'm sure that a lot of audience who are actually tuned in, we already got lots of comments, and those who are listening to us live, thanks to them who actually got the time out and being here with us. And most importantly, thanks to Mike for joining us today and sharing these insights with us, because I think this is the topic really these days, a very important topic. Lots and lots of parents are worried because their kids are not taking part in different activities. They are worried that how to help them. At the same time, that those who are suffering, they don't know what's going on with them. So these are the things this needs to be discussed openly, and we need to create more awareness about it. So anyways, thank you so much for the incredible work you're doing. Especially the model you have created is really amazing. The four pillars that you mentioned is, I think, is the crux that that can treat ADHD. So thank you so much for the all the amazing work you're doing. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
yes, and thank you for all the amazing work you're doing as well. Everything you're doing with Psychology Talks, and there's a lot of work that goes into this. And you've been so incredibly kind and helpful, and everything you're doing is a real asset, and you provide real value to all of your listeners and your community. So keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing a great job.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.